This is Derek Staley with ESFIworld.com, and I'm here with Husky. So, Mike, thank you for taking time to sit down with us.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Sure. So, to get started, there's recently been a lot of debate about players casting. So, while they're still playing, that is. So, what is your opinion on that whole argument?
I saw some of the tweets and the messages and stuff going back and forth. I think it's such an argument that there's really no reason to even argue about that. If someone wants to cast, they should cast, and if someone wants to play, they should play. It's really no one's business on, like as a fan, this person has to play this hours this day and they can't cast. I mean, to me that's just totally silly. People should do whatever it is they want, and if you don't like a caster, then voice your concerns as why, how they can be better. But just saying that, certain people can or cannot cast, to me that's just silly.
Do you think you need to change your casting style when you do cast with the player as opposed to somebody who is a full-time commentator and kind of has more experience in the commentating area?
My personal preference when I cast is try and be very flexible. So if I'm casting with someone like Day 9 who's a former player, or if I was to cast with, say, the little one, I prefer to ask them a lot of questions, especially stuff that they may know a lot about. So the little one specifically plays a lot of Terran and a lot of Zerg. So if I was to cast with him, I'd be like, hey, what's the Terran player thinking here? What's the Zerg player thinking here? But if I'm casting with someone else who may have a similar casting style to me, then we just have fun and try and make the cast as exciting as possible. So I always try and feel out whoever I'm casting with. Like the first MLG I cast with Mr. Bitter, I had never even met him before, and just as we went through the cast, I kind of figured out what his style was, and I adapt to try and make it as interesting as possible. But if I was casting with someone like the little one or Sheth, I would probably just be pretty goofy because they're such great guys to be around.
So in the same regard, there's also been some discussion about the player treatment of casters at events with Artosis and DJ Wheat kind of taking opposing sides on that issue. Have you experienced any of that, and what's your thoughts on that?
My experiences in any of the events, I cast a lot with Day 9 especially, and he is very playful with the players, and it's usually all in completely good faith and fun. Usually there's no, harsh language or anything that's exchanged between, and a lot of times it's just friendly chat between the games. If there was any trash talking or anything, I have a feeling that it was taken out of context just from what I've seen in person. Like if you type something and then you see it posted on the internet, it can be like, oh, I can't believe you said that. But usually it's just joking. So from my experience at all the MLGs I've done 4 or 5 MLGs now, it's always completely friendly, and the casters are great friends with the players. So it's just kind of weird. I feel like from what I've seen firsthand with everyone, whether it's Artosis, Day 9, Tasteless, DJ Wheat, we're all friends with the players. So I don't know where all this is coming from, because I honestly haven't read, because there was hundreds and hundreds of posts. But as far as I know, everyone's friendly with everyone else. Any drama that's coming from that, I think will die down really quickly.
Okay, so we're here at NASL, Day 3. You actually have no games to cast today, so you're done for the weekend, even without casting a game today. Yeah,
I get to actually be a spectator for once, which is awesome. When I go to a lot of the events, you're casting, whether it's 10 or 12 hours throughout the day. And so for the finals, I would love to cast them, but I also would love that I get to sit in the audience and cheer for my favorite players and actually enjoy that. That's something I haven't been able to do in a long time.
Right. So at other events, so for example MLG and some of the other big events, you work a lot of hours. You work 12, 14 hours a day sometimes. What is the conditions like for a caster at those events? Can you walk us through what a weekend's like for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously very exciting, and everyone who's there is just walking on water, on the air, or whatever. They're so happy to be there. Physically, it is very, very exhausting. Just because at the last MLG, my voice completely was going out, and that is something that's never happened to me before. So it is physically demanding, and then also it is long hours. You wake up you have to be there at a certain time, and whether or not you're casting, you're still working, and then also interacting with all the fans. So it can be, about 14 hours when it's all said and done. So physically it is very demanding, but everyone is so into it and so supportive of esports that everyone is there to help out each other, and that's why some of the bigger events, the hours are even worse. You're casting the whole time with no breaks at all, and that can be just completely destroy you. But usually all the casters, the event's at most will be 3 days, and everyone there again is just having a super fun time. So we give 150%, or however you want to say that, and then after that event is usually if you follow my Twitter or Tace's Twitter or Day 9's Twitter, after the event we're always just, all right, guys, we're going to sleep for 2 days. We've got to recover from this. So it is a lot of work, and it may not look like it when you're just watching the stream, but there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes, and we just need a little bit of time to recover from that. But there's nothing better that I could imagine doing.
Is there anything you'd like to see done at these events to kind of help you guys out a little bit, to make it just a little bit, easier to kind of get through your days?
What a lot of the events are doing now is getting extra casters. So in ASL, for example, like my workload was extremely light because for the amount of games that they actually had, the caster count they had was great. So I only cast a couple of matches myself. And even at MLG now, they're starting to invite, they have kind of the extra 2 streams that have casters that do some of the workload. And then also for the red and blue streams, they have enough casters that we can swap them out. So we'll have JP there who can, sub in, or DJ Weed and et cetera. They have a lot more casters now. And quite frankly, that's just the best thing to have because we can easily, all the casters there can marathon a bunch of casts, but being able to say, hey, I need a break just for one match right now, that helps tremendously. It's more than just helping for having a break for 20 minutes. It's actually being able to decide that, hey, I need a break now to recover, go get food, and to be able to kind of dictate your own pace. That does help a lot at the events, and I was glad that NASL did it. MLG has definitely been, bringing in a lot of extra casters, and as far as on the caster front, just having extra talent there to help out is probably the best thing.
The StarCraft community right now, in many ways, is more focused on casters than it is players. So especially with big names like yourself, Day9, and Tastosis, why do you think that is, and do you think we need to do something to change that?
That is a very interesting topic that a lot of people have been discussing, and it is, I don't know that I would call it something wrong because when I go to the events, the players that are the most popular are the players that casters have been covering the most. So the perfect examples would be like Spanishiwa, the Little One, White Raw, and Idra, and Huck as well. I would say that those 5 or 6 players are the ones that the casters during beta and then right after launch were the ones that the casters covered the most. And the absolute perfect example, I think, is Spanishiwa, where he may not be the best player out there, but he may now have a lot more fans because I know I picked up a lot of his games. I think HD did some of them, and Day9 may have done some as well. And so the caster's always trying to find talent that we think is very interesting and that people would like to see. So Spanishiwa was doing that style where he doesn't get gas for a really long time. And I was like, hey, that's kind of cool. That's something that I think should get covered. What the players can do and what they're actually starting to do now, which is so smart, is market themselves as their own brand. So every player out there, if they want more fans, they have to have something about them that's entertaining. If they're completely, boring and their interviews are always like, yes, no, and things like that, and they just need to have a personality and also get themselves out there. Huck, everyone knows his personality. He'll be, goofing off in chat. He'll do the little hearts with the cursor, and of course he's a very strong player as well. Idra, everyone knows his personality, where he's kind of like the bad boy, like walking down the red carpet, not shaking anyone's hand or anything. And a lot of that's just all marketing yourself to kind of stand out from one another. And then alongside that, with the casters being so popular, a lot of it has to do with YouTube. And Day9, he does his daily every single day. That's trying to get his face out there, trying to get a lot more fans involved in StarCraft. StarCraft players can do that as well, especially players like Hero and even Destiny. They've started doing their live streams, which is something that every single player can do. So if it's just a player who is playing in a tournament here and there and that's it, they're not going to get that much coverage. But if they want to get their name out there, start releasing the replay packs, start doing live streams, start putting your face to your games when you're doing a live stream. There's so many things that players can do, and I'm extremely excited that companies like Twitch TV are fully supporting that, having a way where you can make money. And all the players that are popular right now were either heavily supported by casters or are finding ways to make themselves interesting through those live streams.
So at a lot of the bigger events, for example at MLG, you would cast pretty much exclusively with Day9, or you'd have a set casting partner. NASL, there's a lot of casters here. So DJ Wheat's here, for example, and he's casted some games with Day9 as well, and you've casted with other people. Is it harder when you don't have a set casting pair and you kind of have to switch back and forth during an event as opposed to constantly casting with the same person?
I think I personally can cast with anyone, just because so many people in the StarCraft community are awesome. I've never cast with a caster who I'm like, oh, this guy's a total dick. I don't even want to be here. Like I said before with Mr. Bitter, we never even really met before we went on air, and I kind of had to feel it out while we were going along. Now, someone like Day9, yeah, I'm probably more comfortable with him just because, we live close together, we hang out, and also we cast a lot together. So it's just kind of, we're basically like friends casting with each other. Do I prefer really, you know, to have a set caster or to swap out a whole bunch of different casters? I don't know. It doesn't really matter to me. When I show up to an event, I just do whatever it is they want. If they want me to cast by myself, if they want me to cast with one person, whatever they think is best for their company and their brand and the event, making it as far as the entertainment value, like, I'm down for anything. I think that some people do have a more difficult time, you know, sitting in with different casters, and that's completely understandable. Like, you can't do anything with, like, you can't be a cop with a random partner every different day. So I enjoy casting with as many people as I can. I've never cast with Rotterdam, so I think that would be awesome. And I just got a cast with Tasteless for the first time at the last MLG. And at the last MLG, they did switch out casters quite regularly, and I was always excited. I was like, hey, when can I cast? Like, does anyone need a break? Come on, guys. Like, so I really enjoy it, and I think the more casters they involve, the better. Like, I would love to cast with anyone I can.
So in that regards, you know, there really are kind of a set group of casters right now. There's not a ton of casters. There's, I would say, a relatively small number who do most of the major events. You got your start on YouTube. Do you think that's still a viable way for new people to get into casting with how much content's really out there and less people finding their StarCraft content on YouTube?
I don't think that there's any set way of going about it. It's not like you go to college and you get your casting degree and then you graduate and you get a job in StarCraft casting. The way that I did it, yes, was through YouTube, but I think it's not so much where you're starting, but kind of how dedicated you are and how interesting you are and how able you are to get a following through whatever medium you're doing, whether it's YouTube, live streams like I was saying, or trying to get yourself involved in different websites, even if it's a completely small, unknown website, like just writing good articles and all that. So, I mean, if you look at all the casters that there are now, Day 9 started through live streams. I started through YouTube. Tasteless started through actually doing a live event at WCG. And I don't know what Artos's very first casting gig was, but it's probably not exactly comparable to anyone out there. And so it's really just finding what fits for you. When I started on YouTube, it was a website that I had used a lot. Like, I was a computer science major. I was always on the internet. And so to me, that was a perfect fit. YouTube's something that I had been using for basically ever. And it felt like it was where I wanted to get started. So the really important thing is do what feels right for you. Don't try and copy what anyone else is doing. So you should never see success from someone and go, oh, I'm going to do that. You have to really kind of find your own way, because no one's going to just like be like, oh, you're starting on YouTube, so we're going to make you popular now. You really have to kind of find your own way, see exactly what fits for you, and then stay true to that. So, I mean, there's so many people out there starting in different ways. Like, even the players start out differently. Like, Idra was playing Brood War in Korea. Huck hardly ever played Brood War and started playing StarCraft 2 when it came out. So even becoming a pro gamer, there's not a set way to do it. And I think that that's really important. Don't try and mimic someone. You want to find your own way and just try and stay true to it. And I promise that it'll work out as long as you are interesting, entertaining, dedicated, and you really want to make it happen.
So speaking of when you were on YouTube primarily, before you really started doing a lot of live events, a lot of people from the hardcore community sort of considered you a casual caster or something like that. How did you really go through that feedback, and that a lot of it was more of noise than like actual constructive feedback, and really find something that could help you improve? Yeah,
I think honestly the best feedback I had was when I had like 10 subscribers, because those are the people who would look at it and be like, well, this is just another guy on YouTube. I'm going to give him honest feedback on what I think can help him. And then once it started getting more and more popular, yeah, there was a lot of noise, and you have to have really thick skin. Like, it's so easy to say that and to hear it and kind of take it for what it's worth, but when you're living it, and every single day there's literally hundreds of comments that are like, oh, this guy sucks, he's a noob, don't listen to him, blah, blah, blah. It is very difficult to weed through that, but I've noticed that I have a pretty good sense myself of, if I read a comment, I can tell, like, it really is, what is their motive? Are they just trying to degrade you? If so, then just kind of laugh at it and be like, whatever, some angry nerd at home is typing this about me. Or are they actually trying to be supportive? And then if you find one that's trying to be supportive, what they're saying, is it actually something that is a good fit for you? So is it a good fit for me to analyze every single game as if it's a Day 9 daily? Probably not, because there's someone who already fills that role. Is it a good fit for me to try and make a game as interesting as I can to any level of play? Now, that's something that I think is a good fit for me. So that's the kind of advice that I'm going to look at and see, like, okay, how can I fill this role that I enjoy doing myself without not staying true to myself. So I'm not going to try and analyze every game down to every single click or anything like that. My focus is going to be, yes, how can I make this game interesting to anyone who's watching it? So if your grandma's tuning in and she's like, oh, what's this? I'm trying to make it interesting for the new crowd. And that's the feedback I get, especially at these live events, is so many people come up to me and they'll say, even if they say, I don't watch your stuff anymore, but thank you for getting me into StarCraft. And there'll be a lot of people who say, I used to hate all your stuff, but now at these live events, it's so entertaining, and thank you for getting my friends into it. So there is a lot of criticism there, but at this point, it can be difficult to weed through it, but you just have to know, what is their motive behind the comment? Again, is it trying to be degrading, or is it trying to be supportive? If it's trying to be supportive, what aspects actually fit for what you're doing? And that does take. It took me about a year to finally kind of break through the noise and realize that no matter what you do, so if I switched to all perfect analytical pro and I went pro and I was like grandmaster and I'm still casting, there's going to be just as many people who are like, oh, I kind of miss him when he was, approachable by a complete noob. So you kind of have to realize you can't please everyone, but I think that goes for any profession at all.
So I think it's safe to say that your casting has improved significantly, especially since you started doing live events.
Thank you.
There's even been comments from pro players like Grubby just, I think, yesterday on Twitter.
Yeah, I saw that. That was actually, I retweeted that. That was very nice of him to say.
So how much do you think your improvement has been simply just from the sheer quantity of games you casted, and how much do you think it's been focusing on things like game knowledge and really trying to hone certain areas?
That is something that I find really, really interesting. I remember the first MLG that I did, because I did the very first StarCraft 2 MLG, and then I was super, super busy, and they didn't have me back for quite a while. And then when I did the next MLG, the feedback was phenomenal. It was like I posted a feedback thread, and I think like 85% or something of people said they enjoyed the casting. And so for that, I was kind of honestly confused as to why people had thought that. But then I did go back and watch my really, really old stuff. Like if you watch my very first cast, it's just kind of like, wow, that's pretty terrible. But at the same time, it was also StarCraft 2 had just come out, and not as many people were doing that. So I think just having the experience I've been doing it for maybe 3 years now, if you include in the Brood War cast that I used to do, being able to do the cast and then also look at that constructive criticism and really trying to see, okay, if I was a person who is not me and I was watching this, what is it that bugs me? And I've learned that my gut instinct on stuff, if I do something and I feel like it's really, really bad, it's probably super annoying to everyone else. And a lot of that has to do with sticking to yourself and trying to stay true to what you believe in. So the feedback that I've gotten from the last MLGs has been really, really positive, but also there's still I think the last one that I posted on Team Liquid was like 89 or 90% positive and 10% negative. So it's looking at that 10% and seeing, is there stuff in there that I can improve without, kind of setting off the 90% that do enjoy it. And the very first MLG, watching those videos is painful, but also being on camera a lot does help you kind of realize, like, every little thing you do picks up in the camera. So one thing I noticed even at the last MLG is when I turn to my caster, the way it looks on camera looks like I'm swinging way far away, which is such a minor thing, but when you're watching it, that's the stuff that you have to look at and be like, okay, if I was a fan, that's going to be really distracting. I'm like, when is he going to swing awkwardly way back again? So every single time I try and learn something new, and I think that that's really important. Like, never be satisfied with, okay, this is who I am, I'm perfect, it's going to be great, this is what I'm going to keep doing. Always trying to improve is great, and listening to the well-thought-out feedback is very crucial.
All right. So once again, thank you very much for taking the time to sit down with us. Any last words, comments, things like that?
Thank you for having me, of course, and a huge thanks to all the StarCraft fans out there, especially people who are just learning about the game and tuning in and trying to figure everything else out. That is what's making StarCraft so much better. So I always want to just give a big thanks to the StarCraft fans. Keep doing what you're doing. A lot of people always ask, how can I help out esports? Honestly, a good start is just watching esports and reading, the news articles and following it and spreading it to your friends. So if you want StarCraft to go mainstream, that's the absolute best way to start doing it.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.